Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is November 14th. The BBWAA Awards have been given out. Plenty of awards have been given out. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? We're back with another off-season episode. And this one, despite not being too much news in the free agency world, we have plenty of things to talk about, from the BBWAA Awards to plenty of other awards to the first and second All MLB teams, as well as continuing with last episode going over some each division, some free agency needs and team desires. Today is the AL Central. So that is the agenda. Let's jump into things. First and foremost, we're talking about the BBWAA Awards. We're going with Rookies of the Year first. And the AL Rookie of the Year winner was Nick Kurtz, and it was a unanimous decision. All 30 first place votes went to Nick Kurtz. It was absolutely dominance from him this season, and he deserves the award wholeheartedly. In second place was his teammate Jacob Wilson, who received 23 second place votes and 4 third place votes. Roman Anthony finishes in third, receiving 3 second place votes and 15 third place votes. And then when you go down from there, Noah Cameron from the Royals starting pitcher, 3 second place votes for him and 7 third place votes among the other, votes there. But I'm just looking at the top 3. And then Colson Montgomery finished 5th. He got 1 second place vote. Didn't get any third, but did get a second. So there you go there. On the NL side of things, it went to Drake Baldwin, the catcher from the Atlanta Braves, receiving 21 of the 30 first place votes, and then ended up with 9 second place votes. The other 9 first place votes went to Cade Horton, who finished second in the running. He also received 16 second place votes and 4 third place votes. In third place was Caleb Durbin, who received 2 second place votes and 13 third place votes. Isaac Collins, his teammate, finishes 4th with 2 second place votes and 9 third place votes. And then Dalen Lyle from the Nationals, he was 5th in voting. He finished with 1 third place voting there. For Baldwin, he is the first catcher to win since Buster Posey. Back many moons ago when he was with the Giants, of course, back in, I think it was 2010 or 8 and 9, in that era there. But Baldwin is taking home the NL honors there. Those are your Rookies of the Year here for 2025. Moving things along, we've got the Managers of the Years. Manager of the Year, excuse me. And controversially, in first place, the Manager of the Year in the AL was Stephen Vogt of your Cleveland Guardians, receiving 17 first place votes, 8 second place votes, and 4 third place votes. John Schneider finishes second with 10 first place votes, 11 second place votes, and 8 third place votes. Dan Wilson finishes third with 2 firsts, 9 seconds, and 13 third place votes there. Alex Cora finished 4th. He received a first place vote and 2 third place votes. Then AJ Hinch finishes 5th from the Tigers with a second and 3 thirds is how the top 3 votes go from this top 5 there. Surprisingly, Stephen Vogt wins it over John Schneider. Obviously, the Guardians' comeback was one of something we've never seen before, being so many games back by the All-Star break. At one point, they were 15 games back of the Tigers and still put together a second half where they win the division, made up all of those games. And obviously, when these awards are based off of the regular season, so you can't really look at the wild card series and so forth. It's quite the turnaround, and it's very impressive. John Schneider, on the other hand, for Toronto Blue Jays, they took a team that was 5th in the AL East in 2024 and turned them to not only first place winners in 2025, but brought them all the way to the World Series. To me, that is a little bit more of a bigger surprise and a bigger turnaround. And then someone else pointed out on social media that I saw the other day that how did the guy who has 2 guys in a gambling ring and a gambling scheme end up winning Manager of the Year? I have nothing but love for Stephen Vogt. I think he is one of the top 5 managers in baseball. I love Stephen Vogt as a player, love him even more now as a manager, and he was deserving of the award, but I think John Schneider clears him in this category. I think it should have been reversed, and a lot of people that I saw on social media agreed with me there, but that's not how the way the cookie crumbles. Stephen Vogt is your AL Manager of the Year. In the NL, it was pretty unanimous. You know, a couple people difference of opinions, but in first place was Pat Murphy. He is your NL Manager of the Year, receiving 27 of the 30 first place votes. Also received 2 second, which means he didn't get a top 3 vote from one person. Crazy stuff there. Terry Francona finishes second, took a Reds team to the postseason for the first time in who knows how long. 2 first place votes for him, 9 second place, and 12 third place. Rob Thompson finishes third with a first, 7 second, and 6 third. Craig Counsell finishes fourth from the Cubs, 7 second place votes and 3 third place votes. And then Clayton McClough, the Miami Marlins manager, finishes fifth with 5 second place votes and 7 third place votes. It's important to note that both managers, Pat Murphy and Stephen Vogt, are back-to-back winners. Both of these two took home the honors last year as well as this year. Stephen Vogt, 2 years as manager, 2 years manager of the year. Impressive stuff there from Vogt there. And Pat Murphy's really taken this Brewers team to other levels, so good for both of those guys there. John Schneider, unfortunate, man, but you deserve all of the flowers you've been getting. Moving on here, we've got our Cy Young candidates now and our Cy Young winners. In the AL, hello, Tarek Skubal, back-to-back winner, receiving 26 of the 30 first-place votes, received 4 second-place votes. Those other 4 votes went to Garrett Crochet, the inverse. 4 first-place votes for Crochet and 26 second-place votes. The 2 of them receive all 30 first and second votes. Hunter Brown then would finish third. He received 24 of the third place votes. Max Fried finishing fourth with 6 third place votes. And then Brian Rue finishes fifth. Didn't receive a top 3 vote, but with the 4th through 10, I believe they do, 5 or 10. That's how he ends up in 5th place there. Tarek Skubal is the first back-to-back Cy Young Award winner since Jacob deGrom did it with the Mets. He is the first lefty back-to-back winner since Clayton Kershaw. And he is the first American League pitcher to win back-to-back Cy Youngs since Pedro Martinez. Way back, I believe it was 99 and 2000 or something like that. So yeah, pretty long stuff and pretty historic stuff from Tarek Skubal. An insane year from him. On the NL side, unanimously was Paul Skeens, receiving all 30 first place votes. In second place, unanimously, Christopher Sanchez, receiving all 30 second place votes. Remember when this guy was getting snubbed at the All-Star break? Here he is now, second unanimously behind Paul Skeens. In third place, it is Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who finishes with 16 third place votes. The other 14 votes, 10 of which went to Logan Webb, who finishes fourth. And then the remaining 4 third place votes went to Freddie Peralta from the Brewers, finishing fifth. So pretty straightforward there from the NL side of things. Skubal and Skeens are your Cy Young Award winners here in 2025. Which brings us to the final category and, arguably the most important category, and that is the MVPs. Who do you think is going to be the MVPs? Well, we know one of them for sure was Shohei Ohtani for the NL award. He received all 30 first place votes, a unanimous finish there. Kyle Schwarber finishes in second, 23 second place votes and 5 third place votes. And Juan Soto finishing third then with 4 second place votes and 15 third place votes. How about Geraldo Perdomo finishing fourth in MVP? He took 3 second place votes. There were 3 people out there, 3 writers, that said Ohtani 1, Perdomo 2, and then picked between Schwarber and Soto really for third essentially. He also received 7 third-place votes, did Perdomo. And then Trey Turner, he finished 5th with 1 third-place vote. That's how your top 3 votings go there for the top 5 players in MVP voting. In the AL, we knew it would be Judge or Raleigh. The question was, what would be the order? That was something that we had to decide. And it finishes with Aaron Judge taking home his another MVP award there. Aaron Judge wins the AL MVP with Cal Raleigh finishing 2nd. The difference was 2. Aaron Judge received 17 first-place votes and 13 second-place votes, while Raleigh received 13 first-place votes and 17 second-place votes. That's the difference there. Was 2 writers favoring Judge over Raleigh there, which means Jose Ramirez, of course, finishes 3rd, receiving 19 of the third-place votes. Bobby Witt Jr. finishing 4th with 9 third-place votes, and then Tarek Skubal finishes 5th with 1 third-place vote, which means there was 1 third-place vote that went to someone outside of the top 5 there. But yeah, that is how your AL MVP and NL MVP awards go. Shohei, of course, joins Barry Bonds as the only players with more than 3 MVPs to their name. Bonds, of course, has 7. Ohtani now has 4 MVPs. It's also the first time ever that both MVPs are back-to-back winners. Judge and Ohtani won them last year. They both win them this year. Shohei Ohtani is the only player ever to win 2 MVPs in both the AL and the NL. No other player has done this. He, of course, won 2 with the Angels in the AL and has now won 2 since joining the Dodgers in the NL. He also joins Joe Morgan as the only players to win MVP and World Series in back-to-back seasons. Very impressive stuff there from Ohtani. Of course, Judge, he'll continue to rack up his accolades and his trophies there, but those are your MVPs, and those are the awards there. Which brings us to some of the other awards that were given out, including the Comeback Players of the Year. For the NL, it was Ronald Acuna Jr. For the AL, it was Jacob deGrom. They are your Comeback Players of the Year. Once again, the Outstanding Designated Hitter Award goes to Shohei Ohtani. No surprise there. For relievers of the year on the NL side, Edwin Diaz is your NL reliever of the year, while in the AL, the reliever of the year, of course, going to Aroldis Chapman. Remember that streak he had of not giving up a hit in over how many appearances? It was a crazy streak there. Edwin Diaz and Aroldis Chapman, they are your relievers of the year. And another award that they gave out, that was the first time they ever had given this out, was the Entertainer of the Year, the guy that brought the most energy to the game and, was able to put on a show, essentially. That award, the first ever, goes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. He is the Entertainer of the Year in baseball. Funny award that one is, but we'll take it. This brings us to the All MLB first and second teams. Of course, we start with the All MLB first team. This combines the AL and the NL to pick the best players at each position. It's a high honor, so some players obviously get snubbed because it's like you might have been the best designated hitter in the AL, but the 2 designated hitters in the NL were super insane. So, that's how this one goes here. The All MLB first team, catcher, Cal Raleigh from your Seattle Mariners. First baseman, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from the Toronto Blue Jays. Second baseman, Ketel Marte from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Third baseman, Jose Ramirez from the Cleveland Guardians. Shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. from the Kansas City Royals. In the outfield, Juan Soto from the New York Mets. Julio Rodriguez from your Seattle Mariners. Aaron Judge from your New York Yankees. The designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani from the Los Angeles Dodgers. The 5 starting pitchers, Tarek Skubal from the Detroit Tigers. Garrett Crochet from the Boston Red Sox. Paul Skeens from the Pittsburgh Pirates, Max Fried from the New York Yankees, Yoshinobu Yamamoto from the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the 2 relief pitchers are Aroldis Chapman from the Boston Red Sox, and then Johan Duran from the Minnesota Twins / Philadelphia Phillies. That is your All MLB first team. A little fun fact about the All MLB first team. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Ketel Marte, Jose Ramirez, and Bobby Witt Jr. That's your infield. Guess what? That is now the second year in a row that the All MLB first team infield is the exact same. Vladdy, Ketel, Ramirez, and Bobby Witt took home All MLB first team as well last year. So that's pretty insane stuff there. Thank you, MLB Network, for that fun fact that I saw. We move on to the All MLB second team. So the guys who come second, essentially, behind the other players in the first team, as well as, the 6 through 10 starters. So the All MLB second team belongs to catcher Will Smith of the Los Angeles Dodgers, first baseman Nick Kurtz from the Athletics, second baseman Bryce Terang from the Milwaukee Brewers, third baseman Junior Caminero from the Tampa Bay Rays, shortstop Bo Bichette from the Toronto Blue Jays, left fielder Cody Bellinger from the New York Yankees, center fielder Pete Crow Armstrong from your Chicago Cubs, and in right field Corbin Carroll from your Arizona Diamondbacks. The designated hitter Kyle Schwarber from your Philadelphia Phillies. The 5 starting pitchers that make up the second team include Freddie Peralta from the Milwaukee Brewers, Hunter Brown from the Houston Astros, Christopher Sanchez from the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Wheeler from the Philadelphia Phillies, and Brian Wu from the Seattle Mariners. The 2 relief pitchers, Edwin Diaz from the New York Mets, and then Andres Munoz from the Seattle Mariners. Those are your All MLB first and second team award winners. Congrats to all of those players. And those were all of the awards that were given out, of course, in awards night and the awards ceremony there. Very fun stuff, always is. And good stuff all the way around, which brings us to, I guess, the other part of the episode. The first part was all awards. Second part is all about the AL Central needs, and we're going to be doing it team by team, just like we did the AL East. So let's start things off with the Cleveland Guardians, who had a crazy year. Were spending a lot of the season in third place, and they started to get hot in second. And then when the Tigers started to get real cold, they were able to turn over the biggest division gap we had ever seen in baseball history. They won the division. They finished first in the AL Central, ended up playing the Tigers in the wild card round, which is where they lost. They have a couple of big free agents, nothing crazy though. One of the bigger ones being Austin Hedges, who has already re-signed with the team. So they've already locked up Hedges and I guess Bo Naylor as their catcher duo, which they've had now for a couple of years. Cleveland is a very built team from the ground up. They have a lot of young players. I think most of the players on their team lineup-wise ranges from 23 to 26 years old, all very young, all have been a year, 2 years of MLB time. Guys like Manzardo, CJ Kayfus, Bo Naylor, Brian Rocchio, Chase DeLauder, Daniel Schneemann, Jonathan Rodriguez. So a lot of young talent that they have here, and they're guys who are favorable favorites. There are a lot of guys who are fan favorites in Cleveland, guys they like to see, guys that they want to develop. And that's always a challenging thing when you have so much of your team that's young and talented, but hasn't fully reached the talented level. How long do you give them? Because if you've got 6 players on your starting lineup who's young and talented in the minors, and there, 5 of the 6 aren't really contributing at the major league level, that's 4 guys that you have hitting at a major league level and 5 guys that you don't. That was part of the problem for most of the year until the ending when they all kind of figured it out at the same time. Of course, they have Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez. That's kind of like the big 2 guys in the lineup there. But, Bo Naylor has his moments. Kyle Manzardo, of course, the big bopper, has his moments. So interesting there. I think the lineup definitely needs some work overall, That's just me personally. When you look at the rotation, you've got Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee that kind of lead the way there. Slade Ciciani came up and kind of made a name for himself. Parker Messick, same thing. So there's some notable names there. And then for the bullpen as well, guys like Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, there's some notable names. But, of course, there's some guys on the restricted list, such as Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase we've talked about. Of course, they have guys on the injury list as well. David Fry, Will Brennan, that we didn't get to see towards the postseason. If I'm Cleveland, I'm looking at the lineup and I'm really thinking, okay, we need to bring in some power. We need to bring in maybe some defense. Definitely need to bring in, a veteran batter or two, and shore up the bullpen a little bit. Losing Class A, that's a big part of your team, at least was. So I'm thinking, take a chance on a couple of top end relievers once upon a time ago. See if they can tap into anything now. So I'm looking at guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Rhys Hoskins, maybe take up a DH role there, platoon them at first base with Manzardo. I think either if you want to take the right-handed bat in Hoskins or left-handed bat in O'Hearn, either one works. Maybe getting Harrison Bader for that center field slot there. In the outfield, obviously they have Travis Bazana, who will be playing more second base. But I forget they had some kid get called up in center field and made his major league debut in the postseason. Maybe, they turn to him and see what's up, but maybe Bader as well. In terms of the bullpen, guys like Luke Weaver, Pete Fairbanks, I think are interesting options. Guys who, struggled this year, but, Pete Fairbanks was one of the best Rays relievers from, the 2021 onward. Luke Weaver was the, Yankees saving grace last year in 2024. He was the closer there and led them to a lot of success and brought them to a World Series, helped them bring them to a World Series. So I think if you're the Guardians, you're looking more for bullpen help. You're looking for some power and a little bit of defense there. That's what I would be doing if I was part of the Cleveland Guardians front office there. Which brings us to the next team, being the Detroit Tigers. It was a very strong year for about 4.5 months of the 6 months of the baseball season. The last month and a half, though, it really came pouring down on the Tigers, and things got away from them in a hurry. I still like the Tigers lineup a lot, especially all their young talent really showed up last year, and I think it will continue. The continuance of Kerry Carpenter and Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green. Those guys are entering their, third, fourth years. Colt Keith, I think his second year, a lot better. Let's see, keep improving there. The emergence of guys like Wencel Perez and Dylan Dingler, I think, were huge parts. Parker Meadows, same thing when healthy. Zach McKinstry had a nice standout year. And then Javi Baez, who, was an all-star in center field. Who knows what he's up to, but, it's a really solid 9 there. You got some, decent bench options in Jake Rogers and Andy Ibanez. And then you have Tarek Skubal at the front end of your rotation there. So for me, there's one thing to really handle, and it is, pitching in general, starting pitching and bullpen as well. And they even come out and said it. They're going to prioritize pitching this offseason. That's the Tigers, what the GMs want to do. And I think that's a smart thing to do there. Bullpen-wise, I like a lot of their bullpen players already. Tyler Holton, Will Vest, Jason Foley, Tanner Rainey. So, there are guys there that I trust in the Tigers' bullpen. Obviously, you can always improve on a bullpen. All 30 major league teams can always improve on bullpen. But for me, the rotation, Jack Flaherty had a ish year. Casey Mize, some up and some downs, some getting hurt, some not getting hurt. Same thing with Reese Olson. He had a 3.15 ERA. Troy Melton, whether he was out of the bullpen or in the rotation, he had a really solid year as well. He made 4 starts, but he right now is listed as the 5 starter, so obviously you need some starting pitching help. If I'm the Tigers, you can go for more of a cheaper option and getting some veteran talent, and I'm talking about the guys in their 30s, mid-30s, guys like Tyler Anderson and guys like Chris Bassett. Those could be really good additions to the Tigers staff here, or you can take a longer contract, go and get a Zach Gallen, a Brandon Woodruff, I think would be a good fit there as well. So definitely pitching. I would especially prioritize starting pitching, but the Tigers know what they need to do. They need to address their pitching needs, help Tarek Skubal out. Obviously, I think the number one thing to do if you are the Tigers is to lock down Skubal. There's rumors that he's in trade talks, which, if you get rid of Tarek Skubal, you might as well get rid of everyone and start over again. This is the window now for the Tigers. You've got the ace of baseball. You have the number one pitcher in baseball in Tarek Skubal. You have talented players like Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter and Spencer Torkelson, who continues to add and add and add. this is an opportunity where you can go and get another starting pitcher to maybe go and improve on the lineup a little bit, get a big fish. When I look at that AL Central, the Twins are weak, the White Sox are weak, the Royals, they're similar to the Tigers, but like they're a few steps behind. So you're basically fighting the Guardians. This is a big window for the Tigers, and I think trading Skubal away would be a big mistake. I think trying to lock him down is where you should be aiming at, but also just addressing pitching and continuing to add. That's what you got to do, really, if you are the Detroit Tigers, and that's what they should be doing this off season. If they trade away Skubal, tough. I don't know what's gonna happen with that team then if they trade away Skubal. Moving on here, let's talk about the Chicago White Sox. Hey, it was a better year. Only lost 102 games. They had a lot of emergence in their talent in their farm system and guys coming up and making up, contributing. Kyle Teal, a name that I now know a lot more of course, was part of the trade package with Garrett Crochet. He came up and was a big part. Chase Mydroth came up and had some big moments. Lenyon Sosa kept coming up and having big moments. Of course, they have the guys like Miguel Vargas and Benintendi and Luis Robert Jr. How about Colson Montgomery? The future Chicago White Sox, he's going to lead. If this team goes anywhere in the next 2-3 years, it's going to be on the backs of Colson Montgomery. I think this kid's got future written all over it. I don't know how to describe this kid, but he has impressed me thoroughly. And then, of course, you got guys like Corey Lee in the back ends there, Brooks Baldwin, Curtis Mead. So some young talent that emerged. Obviously, the White Sox aren't going to be a good team. They're going to be kind of one of those teams where they maybe get some veteran help just to kind of mentor some of the rookies. And if they play really well, they can trade them at the deadline and get some more prospects into their system here. Because, no offense to a guy like Shane Smith, is listed as the number one guy. He pitched to a 3.81 ERA, the best starting pitcher the White Sox had last year when they finished the year with, I guess. Shane Smith was kind of leading the way a little bit. Sean Berkey, Davis Martin. These are names that, if you're a White Sox, and if you are around baseball, a little bit of, but these are not, Shane Smith is not an ace. He's the ace of the White Sox, but he's no ace, and I think pitching is obviously the White Sox whole shebang and whole thing. Go and get some guys that can maybe help you, can maybe turn their careers around. Like, this is where, if you had a really bad year, guys like Jordan Romano, go and join the White Sox bullpen, figure out what's wrong. You get to pitch at a major league level still. And, if you pitch really well, you become a bullpen ad, somewhere else gonna trade you at the deadline. And now you're on a playoff team and trying to help contribute, figure things out there. Guys like Tim Mays, a guy like Nick Madrigal, Dom Smith, John Means. Guys like that who, you don't know what you're gonna get. You can still be at the major league level. You don't have to be at the AAA system somewhere in some other team. That's where you really want to go for White Sox if you're looking for playing time. If you're looking to get traded at a deadline, that's why you go to the White Sox here. But you can see who they end up adding. Moving on, the Kansas City Royals. I mentioned are in a similar boat to the Tigers in a way, but just a little bit behind them in terms of not having an ace of the staff. Obviously Cole Reagan's super talented, had a tough year, but he's no Tarek Skubal, neither is Michael Wacha, Chris Bubich, Seth Lugo, Noah Cameron, but that's the rotation that they have projected here, and I think that's a really solid 5. Yeah, you can make an addition or two, but I think there's nothing wrong with that Royals rotation. When you look at the bullpen, there are a lot of names here that had decent years. Carlos Estevez was one of the best closers in baseball in terms of recording saves. He had 1.1 WAR with a 2.45 ERA. Lucas Urseg, John Schreiber, Angel Zerpa, guys who had decent seasons. Daniel Lynch the fourth, there are guys here. And obviously they have some talented guys. We had the emergence of Miguel Garcia for the Royals. Who was this guy before this season? I did not know him. Of course, they have talented players such as Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino. They have the 36-year-old Salvador Perez, who still is the captain, leads the way there. They have the young kid in Jack Caglione, who came up and definitely struggled, but maybe a full season in the majors will definitely get him right on track there. They still have guys like India there. For me, I look a little bit into the outfield for the Royals. They could definitely use some offense for sure, and definitely guys who can play the outfield. In terms of the offensive needs, a guy like Pete Alonso fits perfectly, but like that's probably not going to happen. I don't see the Royals shelling out big bucks for Alonso, but that's the type of power that Kansas City definitely needs. So guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, Josh Bell. I mean, those are the power bats and the guys that, fit in well with a team like the Royals that have contact, that have pitching, that have some defense, but you're definitely missing out on the power side of things. And, that is a difference in really good teams versus not really good teams. Maybe even a Cody Bellinger, if you want to go get a bigger fish in the fry, if you're looking at the outfield. Could a guy like Marcelo Zuna be a nice fit? Big power, is an outfielder, but more so the DH kind of role. So that's an interesting, conversation there. Could you put him in the outfield? Probably not. The outfield market runs thin, but maybe a guy like Max Kepler could join the frame. Maybe you bring back Mike Yastrzemski. Cedric Mullins had a bad year. Maybe you can get him on a nice little deal. So some options there for the Royals. Definitely some power, definitely some outfield help. That's where I think the Royals definitely need to look. Because, that's going to be a big part in their free agency needs. Which brings us lastly to the Minnesota Twins, who had the fire sale, man. They sold off everybody, everyone, everywhere. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the Twins are going to be looking like entering 2025. There's obviously some top players in their team, and guys who get hurt from time to time, like a Buxton, like a Royce Lewis. But when they traded away a lot of their players, we got to see the emergence of some other guys. A guy like Luke Keschel came up and was having big moments. We saw Matt Wallner kind of emerge into that big power bat there. Same thing with Cody Clemens. Brooks Lee kept making some big moments, some big hits. Austin Martin, probably one of his better years on the team. What does Outman still have? Does Eduardo Julien still have anything? So there's options there. Outside of Buxton, really, the best players come from their rotation. Guys like Pablo Lopez, like Joe Ryan. So there's, they still have top arms there. Both of them have been rumored in trade talks. Is that the case? Do they want to trade them both? Who knows? The big fire sale came from the bullpen, really. I mean, they lost Johan Duran, Louis Varlin, Griffin Jacks, Brock Stewart, Danny Colomb. So, a lot of the bullpen left there. So, if the Twins want to compete this year, they're going to need to address the bullpen. They're going to need to address the rotation a little bit more. They're going to need to address some of the weaker depth spots in the infield as well. But I think the Twins, obviously a bullpen is the first thing they need. So guys like Tommy Kahnle, maybe you can go get a Michael Soroka, whether you want to use him as a starter or reliever, who knows. Maybe a guy like German Marquez ends up on a team like the Twins. So there's options in the market here if the Twins want to grab some pitching, want to grab, like a Wade Miley, maybe a Nestor Cortez. They go get maybe a Lane Thomas for the outfield, some help there. Maybe an IKF, as I kind of Falefa for the infield. So there's definitely options for the Twins if they want to kind of maybe compete. It'd be very tricky because they sold off so many pieces. But I think the Twins are in a rough spot here. I think they're going to finish fourth next year. We're obviously too early in the offseason to be predicting next year already. But after what happened in the trade deadline this year, if I'm a MLB free agent, the last place I want to really look is Minnesota. But interesting to see how they go about with their free agent needs and continue to try to turn this team around, because it was a declining team, and then they said, you know what, burn it to the ground. And that's essentially what they did, and they burned it to the ground. But they need a bullpen. They need some help other places. But for now, that is what the Twins need to do, is really address the bullpen and go from there. But that is your AL Central needs: Guardians, Tigers, White Sox, Royals, and Twins. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how today's episode ends. We got to look at all the awards. We got to look at the AL Central, and the offseason will continue. On the next episode, we'll be talking about the AL West of teams, among hopefully some more news and rumors. Hopefully maybe there's a sign to even talk about sooner or later here. We're already about mid-November, and it hasn't been much. So, love you all. Appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody, so much. And I will see you on Monday.